Hello everyone, this is Surf, and I've got another meta video for you today. This one I am calling the Eldham Time Bomb, and this one's gonna ruffle some feathers. It's gonna ruffle some feathers. This is gonna be a controversial video, I'll tell you what. You might vehemently disagree, but though I've got to tell you, a little spoiler alert, I will not be condemning what the actions a lot of people have taken in Eldham thus far. I just intend to point out specific weak points in the Eldham culture that we've found ourselves in here. So be prepared for some ideas that you might end up being sympathetic for by the end. Maybe not at first, but by the end. But before I get into all the categories and how I'm going to sort out this whole argument, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. Like the video. Tell your friends. Get your friends involved if they're into Stoneworks or Minecraft world building. Point them my way. I've got content for them, and I'm making more. So I'm here for you. I just want you to let you know that I am here for you. So just like all of the other videos thus far, I've divided it into 3 parts. First of which being the massive alliance networks. Second being the constant condemnation of violence. And the third being the Great War. Are you ready? Are you ready to dive on in? You can see, you might be able to see where this is going, where I'm going to take this thing. But with that being said, let's dive on in. Starting with, firstly, the massive alliance networks, is what I'm getting is a lot of World War I vibes, pre-World War I vibes. There are a lot of nations in this world, in Eldham, with a lot of allies, and coalitions are very easily formed in this sort of environment. And so when an attack comes, or when there is an aggression of any sort, people are very quick to denounce it. People are very quick to hop on the back of any aggressor and try to take them down, which is good. If that's sort of your peacekeeping role, you're gonna be effective in this environment just because so many people feel the exact same way. Also, diplomacy seems to be the only form of mediation, and again, that's great. We don't want people going to war, but at the same time, people aren't really consenting to this. I guess the people within the nations that are being annexed by diplomatic means, be it threats of war or just simple buying out of land, like the annexation of Maximus by Ravengard comes to mind, because people were upset about that. A lot of citizens of Maximus weren't expecting that, and they were pretty upset over it. And Ravengard had the grounds. They're like, this was given to us by your leaders. Sorry this happened. Sorry you disagree, but you're our citizens now. And so it sort of falls to the citizens to be proactive in the event that they want their nation back or want their land back. Because once you find once there's no aggressor, or once the aggressor's demands are given into, there's not really anything you can do thus far to sort of get your own agenda going back in, if you were, say, a civilian living under this new regime. You know what? I'll tell you what. That'll be next video. I'll teach you how to throw revolutions in the next video. You just wait for it. Next, moving on to the constant condemnation of violence. We've all seen it. One side makes a demand of the other one, be it land, annexation, vassalization, you name it. And a lot of nations, or multiple nations, will come to the aid of the defendant and say this is imperialism or whatever. This is expansionism, imperialism, authoritarianism, whatever. And use that justification of imperialism to come to the side of the defendant and even form a coalition to dissuade the aggressing nation of moving forward. And that's how it's been That's sort of the culture around Eldham as it's been thus far, and we've all seen it. We all know about it. And those nations are also going to denounce your nation as imperialists or whatever. And in Stoneworks in general, I've found that denouncements hold weight. You can argue that all press is good press or whatever for your nation for bringing in people or whatever, but a nation can accrue a bad reputation. You know what I mean. You've seen it before. Also, in general, aggression, like blanket aggression in global channels, like in the Stoneworks national announcements, player events, etc., and in the guild servers with the claim updates. Aggression in general is just generally bad optics for the whole nation, like over-aggression. If you've got a strong enough justification, you can get away with it pretty whole. But usually if it's just like a small nation going to war against a small nation, for example, people are very quick to come to the defending side just to, I guess, put it down or come to a diplomatic solution. There's nothing wrong with that, though it can lead, and I'm getting to this, it can lead to bigger problems down the road. Going off the whole infamy thing, if you're overly aggressive towards your neighbors, you can develop a serious reputation as sort of a predator and be perceived as a threat by all of the nations in your immediate vicinity. And when we're living in this Eldham culture of diplomacy being the only great form of communication, it can severely stunt these powers' ability to work within their locality. You have to go through, like, other major powers to become, or just to get things done, just to trade or whatever. Because none of the nations around you want anything to do with you. They think, oh, they're coming to annex us. Oh, they're coming to vassalize us or put us under their banner. Because Rathnir is all people have known thus far. That's all people know. It's a very gritty, violent, nasty, British and short type of rigmarole over there. And you can, it's understandable why people think this. And a lot of the time they're right. The nations do have designs on them, and their expansionist nature just absolutely prevents them from properly interacting with their local nations due to that. I mean, but at the end of the day, even though diplomacy is really the only accepted means of mediation and the condemnation of violence might still makes right on Eldham just like it does on Rathnir. My thoughts immediately go to New Kunir / Vana Kunir's assault against the USSE, the United Socialist States of Eldham, and how everyone has pretty much denounced Vana Kunir and all of their subsidiaries. And a lot of people came to the USSE's aid. But at the end of the day, the USSE and that coalition still lost. And Vana Kunir gets to continue to exist and be as expansive as it is through solely the expertise of war. And you cannot argue with a good sword once the war has been declared. There's nothing to really do. And win or lose, it's going to have big consequences. This leads us to the last section, the last category of the video, the Great War. And with all these alliances, with all this diplomacy going on, everyone talking to each other, there's the United Nations of Eldham, and like the Northern Lights is another alliance network just to throw out there. Everyone's talking to each other. Everyone has the option of talking to each other and engaging in diplomacy if they so choose. And with that being the only real way to do things, and these alliance networks building up and building up and building up, we're going to get to a point where an immovable force meets an unstoppable object, you know? And things are going to get bad, and things are going to get bad quick. People have already sort of talked about that quite a bit. The Great War. I've had personal experience with this. I don't know if you know this, but I'm one of the leaders of Grand Ferencia, just to add some personal experience into all this. There was a succession crisis in Valor where the guy, the leader of the nation, quit the server before acknowledging his supposed heir. And I tried to take advantage of that by annexing some land or claiming the land, at least. And that very quickly turned into a World War situation where he had major powers on both sides ready to kill each other in the event that, you know, I really wanted to pursue this claim. And I ended up stepping down because I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't mentally prepared to start a massive world war, the first world war Eldham has probably ever seen. And it's a big responsibility. Whoever starts that war is going to have to be ready for it and ready to deal with the consequences, win or lose. Because if you lose, I mean, there's going to be big winners and big losers from any sort of Eldham world war. If you lose, you're going to lose everything. You got to start again. You're probably going to have to start, you're going to have to find a nation to take you in and start off there. I mean, it can go one of two ways for that case. I mean, people might not even want to look at you for that war. They'll see you as like a traitor or someone who's not to be trusted. Or if you're like really competent, they might like get you on as like an advisor or like a town leader or something pretty cool like that. But the burden is probably going to be much bigger for the winners after that, because they've got to reorganize basically the entirety of Eldham, or at least half of Eldham at that point. Following a successful war, there's going to be, if the winners are authoritarian, there are going to be massive vassalizations, massive annexations. If they're more libertarian, if the winners are more non-authoritarian in nature, they might go the way of the ARS and just zone off sections of land, or just take whatever nations they annexed, carve them up into their regional borders, or like, regional borders, provincial borders, or whatever, and sell that as individual pieces of land, probably to the towns that already live there, but maybe not, just because there would be a fear of that nation just immediately reforming and declaring independence. So it's a real doozy. It is a real big doozy. And in general, for any great war, there's going to be massive devastation. And when I say great war, I mean lots and lots and lots of like mini wars, and then one big war with all of the main powers. I say this because the way that Stoneworks formats its wars is that it's always on a town-by-town basis. So a war can lead to the annexation of entire countries. Sure, that's the way it's been. And I think that the leader of Barbarossa put out a big thing condemning that, and people seem to agree with him. On sense, I think that's going to have lasting repercussions, by the way. I think people might stop doing the whole, you lose one war, you get annexed type of business. I think we might see a lot of mini wars for going town by town basis if they wanted a complete and true conquest. But there's going to be big wars and then tons and tons of little tiny ones. That's how I see this Eldham Great War planning out. And there's going to be massive devastation. And with these tiny wars going on everywhere all the time, like when you're in a war, you can break the opponent's structures. There's going to be ruins everywhere. It's going to be a blast for any historians out there, particularly new player historians that are interested in all that kind of thing. You're going to be able to find massive capital constructions, probably like work in progress capitals of nations that are just left to rot, half griefed, I guess. Not exactly griefed, not that word, but like houses in ruins, your basic ruins. And it's going to be a very dark time for anyone with a vested interest in any particular nation, especially if you lose. And with these collapse of nations and all of these ruins that I've been talking about, people make their own lore. People are making their own lore, their own backstories, and that's great. That's what you should be doing in a world-building setting, in a world-building server. However, provided you lose a war, provided your nation, and you've got this, like, you're like an elf or something, or you're like a dwarf, and you've got this town lore, and you've got this citizen lore, people group lore, the nations that come and conquer you aren't going to be going around remembering that. You know what I'm saying? I think that's going to have big repercussions. Like, we're going to be seeing the collapse of religions, cultures, people groups. Like imagine if, like, you're like an elf. How many people, like, name on one hand how many nations in Eldham and Rathnir sort of know themselves, know their people groups as, like, dwarves or elves, etc., etc. Like, you might know your nation if you identify as that, if your nation identifies as that, but if you're in just like a regular old human nation, human player Steve nation, how many nations on your hands can you name that sort of identify that way? You're not going to know. And if your nation conquers another, you're still not going to know. And it's very gray. It's very gray sort of how that's going to get sorted. And worst case scenario, you might just be left in the wikis. And that's it. You've got your wikis. So all things considered, in conclusion, this insistence on defensive peace and the building up further and further of alliance networks, I think, for my part, in my personal opinion, is going to culminate in this massive unstoppable force meets immovable object type of conflict, and we're going to have a massive war about it. And then there's going to be massive consequences that flows outward from that. However, I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think. This is the end of the video. Leave your comments. Tell me if you think I'm right. Tell me if you think it's going to go in a drastically different direction. What do you think about my points on the current weaknesses of Eldham metaculture? And what do you hope happens? What do you hope to see out of the future? Let me know. Subscribe, like the video, tell your friends, and next time, like I said, I'll be talking about revolutions. If you're a citizen and you want your own place, if you're unhappy with the current ruling structure, I'll tell you how you might proceed. And so, I'll leave you right here. I'll see you next time.